Hello again, this is from Kharkov, close to the apartment where I'm staying. I'll first give a short update on what it's like in Kharkov. So the city is fairly deserted. Public transport is free. The first night I got here it was 2015 in the evening and it was pitch dark. There was no lighting anywhere. It was really difficult to find my way to the apartment, and yeah, that's logical, of course, that they do that. Everything is switched off, every external lighting. Houses all have the curtains closed. Yeah, logical, because has been until recently a war zone. As in terms of what I saw in destructed buildings or damaged buildings, it was not that bad. I saw two fairly damaged buildings in center and quite a few damaged buildings in the sense of having broken windows, etc. But I want to talk. There was also on the 27th there was a air raid warning, 2049 in the evening. The power went out. I heard some bangs. Wanted to get my phone, but the power went out. Could not find my phone in time to make a video where you can hear it. I did make a short video about it, but I will probably upload that later. So that gave me a feeling of being a bit in a war zone, with power being out for a day. Other than that, it's been fairly okay here. It does not feel as if the city is destroyed. One of my acquaintances who lived in Kharkov told me, yeah, don't come to Ukraine, don't come, there's a war, my city's been destroyed, but there is not that much damage. I will show you a little bit of the damage later on. First, I will tell you a little bit about manipulation and about some prediction of how it's going to go in the war. So my acquaintance from Ukraine, actually from Brazil, but he lived in Ukraine for quite a few years. Then he went to Russia. A bus. All public transport is free, by the way. Metro doesn't go to all stations, so I had to get to the edge of the city, for example, I had to take a bus after the metro station, Akademika Barabashovka. Okay, let's talk about this. So, he's been quite indoctrinated, as I mentioned in my two videos about this topic. And he's going to be really disappointed about how it's going. It's going exactly as I thought in this war, actually faster than I thought, because of the HIMARS, with which the Ukrainians can attack the positions of the Russians very accurately, and especially target then ammunition depots, etc. Second issue that's already making things very bad for Putin is the mobilization. Russia was going to the abyss, and instead of slowing down, putting on the brakes, no, he slams on the accelerator and goes full ahead towards the abyss. A complete idiot. Okay, let's talk about predictions. So my friend still believed as of 14th September, but he still believes this. 3 outcomes for the conflict. Putin declares a war and mobilizes the army. He wins the war. Putin uses nukes. He wins the war. 3. Putin requests the army to retreat from Ukraine, loses the war. And I, in response, using Putin's nukes, there are several options, like tactical nukes are fairly small, up to a complete, really big atom bomb, like the USA used in World War II. That's probably not going to happen. The response to any of these differs. If we would use a big nuclear bomb, then the response would be as in 2, as I predict. But let's go to 1. So Putin declares a war, mobilizes the army. Then I say Putin loses because he doesn't have the military equipment to stand up against Ukraine anymore. That was already clearly the case. He doesn't have the tanks anymore. Aircraft don't dare to fly over Ukraine because they will get shot down. Navy is nowhere to be seen. It's just If they don't have even the equipment to give to the soldiers that they mobilize, how the hell are they going to fight the Ukrainian army? Second, if Putin uses nukes, then Putin loses. For a big bomb, then this will happen. He will get wiped out. All subs will be sunk by the USA. I'm pretty sure that all or almost all nuclear missiles will get destroyed before they explode, which means no action. Then Russia gets invaded by NATO and completely demilitarized, including being stripped of all nuclear stuff. Putin requests the army to retreat from Ukraine. Putin loses, and I say again, Putin loses. The only option not included here is, or he does not differentiate between tactical nuclear weapons and bigger ones. Tactical nuclear weapons, then the response will likely be smaller than this, then, as has been hinted at, and which seems logical, then the USA and other NATO allies will help Ukraine and wipe the Russian army from Ukraine. And then say, this is where you are now, get the hell out of here, and then the rest can continue. And the rest, that means still complete isolation of Russia until they deliver all the war criminals, pay all the damage that they've done, etc. Which is not likely going to happen unless all the fruitcakes in the Kremlin, the Duma, etc. are replaced by normal thinking people. That's not going to happen unless there is a revolution in Russia. We will see if that happens. Now I will go to chat active. I did not want to archive. Okay, let me see another one. Okay. I'll show some pictures. I have them on my chat here because it's easier. So these are empty shops in the subway station. In the subway, they're underground towards the entrance of the subway. Most of them are closed. This is a quite damaged building. Behind it is what is it? A sort of plastic net. Is most of the damage. Belgian waffles. Well, this is superficial damage, just glass. But here is quite a lot of damage. This is in the center, and this is the rear of this building. This is the front. So there has been quite a lot of damage here. Statues and also one tank at the history museum have been all protected by sandbags, and then these nets around it. This is the big shopping center with the Caravan supermarket. I don't know if it's still a Caravan. The one in Cherkasy was in Ochan. But this is completely closed. And here you see damage, windows. This is the entrance to the metro. Quite a lot of damage to the glass, at least. This is fair amount of damage. This is close to the supermarket Caravan that I just showed. Here we come to some flats, and you see a lot of damage to windows, boarded up, etc. And this is in another area about 5 kilometers away. I walked a lot in that area to see what was going on, and I did not see that much in damage. So it was not, as my acquaintance said, that my city's been destroyed. There are some areas, some buildings, but it's not like the whole city's been destroyed. It's not like Mariupol. Now to, let's see. Channel.
All of them were civilians who were trying to leave this area, and the Ukrainians attacked those civilians in their back using the artillery or mortars. Anyway, Around 30 people were killed during that attack, and all of them were civilians, and there were a lot of children among those civilians. So
yeah, sure. The Ukrainian military attacked civilians. That's complete and utter bullshit. This is a guy who, military summary. This is apparently a Belarusian, and he just talks out of his ass. He's unable to do any analysis. I made I wrote down a bit about it. It says here, so it's 3:17. It says that the military shot civilians in the back with artillery mortars. How do you shoot someone in the back with artillery? Yeah, from the side where they're going to leave or something. If something like that happened, then it was definitely not on purpose. But he implies that it is. But of course, this is an idiot who thinks that Russian information is just as much worth as from other sides, which it doesn't. You can it already in 2014. It was obvious how unreliable anything from the Russian side is. The Russian TV was like World War II German propaganda films, and it still is. There were lies about what caused certain things, and people on VKontakte showed what the real origin of pictures, etc. was, and it was always something else. It was always lies from the Russians, just as they do now, everywhere. Their official stuff is lies or propaganda or misinformation. And from the trolls, it's lies, misinformation, nonsense. So you cannot take anything from the Russian side as being in any way informative unless they report about defeats of the Russian army, of course, because they then are forced to admit what they don't like, and then you can accept it as logically as real. So 5:15 he says the same about another area. Let's go to that. 5:15, 5:12. Come on.
but anyway, as you can see, the Ukrainians stopped. The Russians are also saying that they attacked Nikolaevka, this we can say the base or the reserve base of the Ukrainians in the Liman offensive operation, and the Russians are saying that as a result of that attack, Foreign Legion had losses in this town, and they lost up to 80 soldiers in this area. To tell the truth, there were no more changes on the front line. Like the regular situation, the Russians are attacking warehouses, depots, the headquarters. There were no updates from the Ukrainians, just the thing that they attacked civilians in Skol-Kupinsk area. Regular.
Sure. The Russians attack military targets and the Ukrainians attack civilians. Complete and utter bullshit. Now let's have a look at some of the comments. Because this guy gets roasted quite a bit. I'm not going to read this Russian one. Russian language. Oh, here. We are witnessing the transition from SMO to ATO, anti-terrorist operation. And yes, a lot of Ukrainian blood was lost in their counter-offensive over territory they will lose once again. Completely deluded troll. Russia has lost the day they started this war. And 2 months in, I already knew Russia was going to lose because they were so inept and they could. It was impossible with the Western supplies of weapons that came quickly after that time that the Russians could do anything. Here, yesterday, Tom held, that's also a troll. Yesterday, a demonstration against NATO arms deliveries. Sure. Then he talks a lot. I'm not interested. Oh yeah, he says here, I hope this terrible war will end as soon as possible. That's something the trolls do if they're slightly more intelligent. in their manipulation, they go along a little bit with what's accepted in the opposite side to make their other points seem more logical, as if you're dealing with a rational person. You're not dealing with a rational person. You're dealing with someone who believes in fairy tales. And here this guy says a deluded Russian propaganda, and that's exactly right. Same goes for you as well. No, reality says that the trolls from Russia are deluded. Thanks for sharing this comment with us, Young, probably a fake name. Thanks for sharing this comment with us. Yeah, sure. This is almost certainly a troll as well. This is a troll as well. Thank you for sharing that information. I think the American government will attempt to prolong this war as long as it's financially beneficial to the military-industrial complex and by extension to them. Typical troll, it's about money, the military needs to make money, blah 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 blah. Let's hear troll city. This is just going along with another troll. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting about the losses in World War II, that they were not just Russian losses, but from other areas. Of course, the Ukrainians lost a huge number of people in World War II. If you read a bit about history, then you realize how many people were killed in World War II by the Germans. It's absolutely insane. Then we have Penny Hardaway, another troll, blah 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 blah. Here says there talks about rockets, blah blah blah. There are rumors suggesting Fed will be able to build dozens per day. There are no such rumors. This is typical troll talk. There are rumors that this and that happened, which is something they made up themselves, and then with this statement make it look like it's really true and heard it somewhere else. Really, who buys this? Yeah, I'm not sure who is responding to, but yeah, this is also not interesting, but let's see. It's not forbidden to hit civil infrastructure in SMOs if it is a military necessity. Sure. All those hospitals and those buses marked children and those buildings marked children were necessary. It was necessary to hit those. Get the hell out of here. But there is a lot of criticism about this guy, this video maker, logically, because he can't analyze. If you treat Russian and other information the same, then you can't analyze, because there have been Russian information has been proven to be almost valueless, almost always lies. Let's see here. Nice to hear this prediction, but maybe these units, which are focused on Western Poland near Poland, is not only about cutting roads to Kiev. Blah 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 blah. This is all nonsense here. It's not a prediction. It's a fantasy. Yeah, of this video, this maker. This video is fantasy. Feeble attempt to ignore reality, as Russia likes to do also. Here. It's all bad, but I sincerely hope, Dima, that if your country gets involved in this, you personally will not be in danger. Take care. Why? It would be nice to hear him giving us another interesting update while he's in the custody of the Azov battalion. I think he should lead the charge, being a military expert. Yeah. Nice. Let's see. Let's see if there's anything else interesting. It seems almost that the situation with the pipeline escalating with a NATO false flag. Yeah, of course. Bullshit. Here. Would you like to tell us more of the Russian twist and propaganda version of this? They are already inside Ukraine. No, there are no NATO forces in Ukraine. Here, Kurt Wigland on a channel featuring countless imagined preposterous scenarios. You've managed to take lunacy to new heights. I am in awe. Oh, yeah. This is hilarious. Hilariously stupid. But it's not just these kinds of people. So this is Belarusian, who just uses the information from Russian sources as having the same value as from other sources. But there are also these idiots with channels like who say give reasons for why Germany should not send Leopard 2s tanks or Panzerhaubitze 2000. It was before they were being sent. A few. I said Germany should send quite a lot more. I made a comment about this in a video from Military History Visualized, and this guy is a complete a-hole, but he's also a moron of the first order. Jesus Christ! I'll put a link in the description and the pinned comment. So I said, yeah, they should just send half their Panzerhaubitze 2000. And he said, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Do you have any experience about analysis or blah, blah, blah? And I don't explain anything to people like you because you don't even know the basics. Yeah, I know the basics. I know analysis better than that moron does. Why do you need those things to defend against a land attack? Which country would you need to defend against if that happens? The only country that you would need it against is Russia. And Russia is being hammered by Ukraine. That's what it said. Of course, he doesn't give any proper reply. He just gives stupid comments, and antisocial comments like, "Are you this and this old?" or "You don't know what you're talking about." Blah 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 blah. Idiot. And these kinds of people help to propagate the idea of not sending tanks to Ukraine, or Panzerhaubitze 2000, until it's too late, because it might fall in enemy hands or other such nonsense. What are you going to do? Let those tanks be used only in exercises and never for what they were intended for? Ukraine is fighting for the war that could happen if Ukraine stops fighting. Then Russia could get stupid ideas and attack NATO countries with the threat of using nuclear bombs if people were to go against them. Let me go now to another video. Military summary, that's a complete idiot. Detecting a Kremlin troll. Yep, this is it. It was with this video. I'll put it here. So this is a 30-ton beast. General on tanks US might send to Ukraine. Yeah, it's generally accepted that the M1 Abrams is not the best option to send to Ukraine. The Leopard would be better. But I will give a go to comments. I will show you a little bit. So I was reading a while back that this is from that video. The West wasn't sending modern tanks is because of how long it would take to train the Ukrainians to use them. Yeah, and if they sent them already and trained them already, they could have been using them now. They already knew how to use Soviet-era tanks. It was better to get them weapons they were already familiar with. Therefore, the Ukrainians could get them on the battlefield quicker. Yes. Now we come to the interesting thing. The real reason is the West still has some thoughtful leaders who realize that it's bad karma to throw too much gasoline at the civil war. It's amazing how recklessly trigger-happy our culture has become. Guess we stopped having thrill after our Afghan campaign ended. I don't need to remind you how that went. Alright, what do you think if you hear that? If you read it? I immediately think Russian troll. There are several reasons for that. One is saying it's a civil war, which it's not. Second, it's not a native English speaker, which is a small additional sign. What jumps out most of all is the style, which is using and abusing sayings, like using it's bad karma, throwing gasoline at a fire, but instead of that he says at a civil war. It's amazing how recklessly trigger happy our culture has become. That's a weird sentence. Guess we stopped having thrill after our Afghan campaign ended. Of course he says we, but it's not we because he's a Russian, almost certainly. And in any case, it's Kremlin troll, so it's not likely not from a NATO country, and definitely not from the USA. I don't need to remind you how that went. This is like stating something and then putting a question and then asking a question, by which you make the statement to be assumed true. It's like this. You don't want to. You don't want someone to question the things that are very important to you. I don't need to remind you how that went. Yes, you need to. You need to give some reasons for why something goes a certain way, or. So anyway, I wrote this down. This is what I will publish on my site soon. His style is overly formal. And that is typical for people who are not native English speakers, and especially I've seen it a lot in Russians, especially if they're emotion poor. Yeah. Now we'll go further a bit. He says, "Oh yeah, how is Russia invading Ukraine civil war? You do know Ukraine is not the same country as Russia, right? Not by legal definition. Agree, but the conflict has all the trappings of a civil war." And what I thought is already clear here. It's completely clear. Trappings of a sort of civil war. That's overly formal language. Agree. He doesn't say agreed, or he doesn't say I agree, but agree. That's what you would say as a Russian, because there are no definite and indefinite articles like the and a in Russian. And trappings of a civil war. That's just nonsense. So. First comment, I already thought Kremlin troll. Second, reinforces that comment. Oh, he says another comment. Our military is the best without a doubt, but in the end, it's political will of the people that wins war. That wins a war or the war. Again, removing an article where it's really missing in English. In a democracy, he says our military, as if he's from the USA, which he's not. It's a manipulation technique, going with someone and then giving you a real point that you want to make, which is, of course, from the point of view of the trolls. Then someone says something about democracy, blah blah blah. Alright, that's yeah. Here he says, going back from history, how things happened, and I see the parallels you're drawing, but we are not backtracking to 1850. So he copies this sentence, and that's because he's of course not a native English speaker. Our society became Uniscope 50 years ago. Uniscope, this is not a native English speaker. No reason to believe we are losing it. And he writes, Celso, Mariano, blah blah blah. This is a troll. Separatist movements have been growing in Donbass since 2014. Thousands of ethnic Russians died from regular Ukrainian shelling in the past years. I don't want to get into arguments. He's not into an argument. Again, missing an article. With you here over facts. You could listen to what Henry Kissinger had to say about this conflict. I agree with him. So if you disagree, you are welcome to argue with him. And that confirms everything from the previous, from the first impression that was already confirmed, and now you're sure. So separatist movements, if you talk about ethnic Russians, troll, died from regular Ukrainian shelling. Yeah, what do you expect? Ukrainian army shoots at separatists who are shooting at them. Big surprise. I don't want to get into argument with you over facts. This is typical methods like disallowing disagreements from the start. It's a typical manipulation technique. So he's, as I wrote here, he's a troll, he's antisocial, he's using the position of psychopath. Kissinger, about Kissinger, I read that his brother said, "Do you know the difference between me and my brother? I listen to people." Yeah, Kissinger doesn't, because he's an a-hole. As being the same, so his position and Kissinger is the same. Kissinger said about that Ukraine should give up land. You never negotiate with a psychopath like Putin. Completely useless. Then it'll never end. You need to discuss. No, we don't. I just don't discuss anything with psychopaths or autists. It's a waste of time. They're too stupid to understand proper arguments. That's in general true. I've had a lot of discussions with autists and antisocial nutjobs. Always a waste of time. We also mentioned Kissinger for the purpose of getting a respect, and that people would need to go against the view of a person who they could view as knowing it better. This is an invalid defer to authority type of argument. There are some valid defer to authority arguments, by the way. It's not always invalid. But in this case it is. Stating, "I don't want to get into an argument with you here over facts," is antisocial, disallowing disagreements of what he says are facts, which are not facts but lies and opinions. Yeah, talking about ethnic Russians, talking about Ukrainian shellings, I did that. So in general, he has a style of debating which is not actually debating, just pretending to do so. Which is obvious. How he expresses himself in English does not matter for this factor. He shows that he's antisocial from disallowing disagreements and other things. And he's a Kremlin troll. He makes mistakes in language, as I said, leaving out definite and indefinite articles which come from Russian. They're very obvious if you know Russian. Invalid reasoning, antisocial comments, looks out from the Russian side, which looks like a somewhat able but rather emotion poor troll. So perhaps this has been interesting. It's quite different, of course, from talking about bicycling subjects, but my channel has always been about adding something to my bicycle website, not about being the essence. And this type of thing I encountered a lot on my website with these disagreements with people about bicycle lighting, about that flashing tail lights should not be allowed, other kind of thing. You can have a look at my website. Maybe you'll find it interesting. So these are similar to what I've experienced in computer programming as well. Experienced lots of nonsense like this from antisocial people, from autists who cannot reason at all. They reason towards what they think is right and what they want, and not towards reality. Right, long video, but could be useful or interesting to you. So here I'm in a area with a small children's playground. It's a bit noisy because of the roads that are wet. I told you about Kharkiv, the situation here. It's not so bad. Tomorrow I'm going to Zaporozhye. I will see what it's like there then. And after that I don't know yet. See you in the next video.